Hello, everybody, and welcome to this week's episode of Everything But the Podcast. I'm your host, Tony Soros Rex. As you already knew, Twisted Joker and Leslie were not going to be on for this episode, but I announced previously on the last episode that Jim Schubin. I almost mixed Jim and Philip up. You got it backward. Director Philip Carrol, yes. Wife and actress Chloe Carrol, and lead actor Jim Schubin from the film The Honeymoon Phase are on this episode of the podcast. There we go. I think I got it all out, and I think I did it right. I'm the guy that jumbles my words all the time on the podcast, so even if I get it right, I can still mess stuff up.
There you go.
Now, this episode originally was going to go out, what would be Wednesday, like the 13th, but because of your movie release, when is your movie release? The 17th?
The 21st, so all the press for the movie comes out the 17th.
Okay, so this episode will go up on the 19th, so it'll be a couple days ahead. But that was obviously because you said you wanted me to wait a little bit of time. Yeah. But I did get a chance to watch the film, which is going to be good for this interview because I loved it. Yeah, I wasn't originally sure what to expect going in because I just knew it was called The Honeymoon Phase, and I was like, "What is the honeymoon phase?" So for anyone out there who doesn't know, I'm going to ask you what the honeymoon phase is. To put it at least in your best terms.
Sure. So the honeymoon phase, the term or what the film's about?
Do the term first and then go into what the film is about.
Okay. So the honeymoon phase as a concept is kind of that early period in your relationship where you're just completely infatuated with each other. And I feel like most couples probably go through this at some point. Some it continues on, some it doesn't, right. And some it kind of turns into a deeper love. And for our film, as a young married couple ourselves, we really want to explore the concept of the honeymoon phase while we were still in it ourselves. So the film, The Honeymoon Phase, is about a struggling young couple played by Chloe and Jim. And they go into this experiment that's studying couples and trying to determine why they fall out of the honeymoon phase. Right. So they entered this experiment, paid $50,000 in exchange for living in a remote mountain house for a month while the relationship studied. And over the course of their stay, their relationship's challenged, and Chloe starts to go mad as she begins to question if her lover Tom's really the man that she thinks he is.
Which we're not going to get into that yet, but there is a twist there. But I know when I first went into the film, I got confused because I thought whenever they gave him the drug and they said you're going to wake up and I literally thought they were going into some kind of twisted dream phase. So it wasn't until later on, like probably not even until like the very end of the film where I realized they were actually in the house the whole time. And it wasn't just a weird dream state that they had to get pulled out of. But one thing I can say is not just the directing, but the acting was phenomenal in this film. Like Jim, you did an amazing job playing the different mentalities, like being able to change from 1 second of the sweet, nice, whatever, and then being completely evil in the second. Like, I thought that was pretty cool how you were able to play both parts like that.
Well, thank you very much. Appreciate it. It was a blast.
I wanted to give you a chance to talk about that. How were you able to get yourself in the mindset of playing basically yourself, but two different variations of yourself?
Yeah, I guess we're not giving anything away. Without giving anything away.
Trying not to.
Trying not to.
I was like, I'm saying no, but no variations, and I'm like, that's giving away without giving away, so I think I'm still safe.
We had a lot of rehearsal, which is not something that normally happens for a film. No, I've never been on a project where we had multiple sessions together, and it would just be Chloe and I would get together at an office in South Jersey, and we would read through scenes. We'd talk through camera shots. We would work on where things are going to go, what the intention was, and then we'd just kind of play and see what came out. And that was super helpful for me to have the time to dive into it with someone, because normally all of my prep is on my own.
Right.
So having the chance to work with the two of them before we were even on set, locked up in a house for a month, literally locked up in that house for a month as a crew. For me, I was able to find a lot of the nuance and excitement ahead of time so that when the moment came, it was just playing. But the rehearsal was insanely helpful, and it really allowed us to explore together, which I think was the important part.
And I imagine being locked up kind of helped the character a little bit in those moments where you had to
Yeah.
get angry. You're like, well, I am stuck here in a month.
Yeah. we were filming in the house that we were staying in as well.
Right.
So on any given day when we were going to be shooting in a certain room, if that was the room you were in, all of your stuff got cleared out. And then the set dressing came in and they set it up. And I was like sleeping in a hotel one night and then back in my room the next night. And like you never knew where you were going to be from day to day.
So
Sounds pretty chaotic.
The master bedroom in the house was the bedroom that Chloe and I stayed in. And
Right.
that was the bedroom in the film that Tom and Eve used in the film. So every day, me and Chloe would pack up our stuff, hide it in the closet, we'd shoot. And it was the weirdest thing in the world because we'd wake up in the middle of the night thinking that we were shooting. We had this almost like joint delusion.
Right.
Because we were living, working, and sleeping in the same room for a good portion of that month. So it was pretty crazy.
How was that adjusting for acting, Chloe? Because 1 second Philip's your husband and the next Tom in the movie as your husband. And you've been sleeping in the same bed with both of them at various parts of the film.
Yeah,
I imagine that was
sleep
weird.
on one side and Phil on the other side.
Oh, God.
It's a big bed.
It was, yeah.
It was a big bed. So what was funny is the bedroom we had, like the layout of the house meant that to one of the bedrooms you had to walk through our room to get there.
Right.
So there was really like, especially for us, like no boundaries for like people would just literally walk through in the middle of the night while we were asleep. So,
right. That's not creepy at all. People just walking by when you're trying to sleep.
by day like 6, you just don't care. You just need to sleep. And
Yeah.
We were all a family in that house. You had to be.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, if there's no boundaries, you're kind of forced into the family atmosphere. You're like, well, if you're going to be walking by while I'm trying to sleep, as long as you don't walk by and I have the bathroom door open, I think we'll be all right.
Well, you saw the film, so the bathroom in the film, it has a glass door. And most people are like, why would you have a glass door to your bathroom? Because, while you're doing your business, you don't want to have people look at it.
Right.
But, it's a romance. You want it to be a little sexy. And, because we were living in that house too, we had a C-stand with a blanket over top of it draped down. So when you had to use the bathroom, you just move the C-stand and then put it in front of the door, do your business, and then go back out. So it was pretty crazy.
Right. And the house did have almost like, it kind of tied into with me thinking of the dream phase because it had almost a futuristic look to it. And then, of course, like the hologram stuff and stuff like that. That was the sci-fi aspect of the film. I thought it was cool how you blended two different genres with the sci-fi and the horror.
Yeah, thank you. When we were conceiving the film, Chloe and I literally drew like a Venn diagram of what our various interests were. And experiments were something that ended up in both our columns. And, we kind of took this idea of not knowing truly who your partner is, mix that with a science experiment, and then that was kind of where the tone of the film came from.
And that automatically makes it creepy with the not, like, know who you're marrying, because there have been people in real life who have been married to serial killers or stuff like that and haven't known. So it kind of adds that real life creepy factor to it as well.
Yeah, we wanted to be one of those films where when you get done watching it, you look over at your partner and you wonder, are they who I think they are?
Luckily, I didn't have that issue. We've been married long enough. I hope we both know each other by this point. So let's talk about maybe a little bit of the writing or behind the scenes. See, I'm trying to do this without doing any spoilers, and it's becoming really difficult because there's specific scenes I want to talk about, and I can't.
Will you, when you normally do these, do you have a spoiler section? Because we could always cover that stuff later on in the video.
I could do that. I could even, if you really want, I could hold off on this episode releasing it until after your movie comes out. Then it won't matter because your movie will already be out and everybody has a chance to see it. So instead of being like the 17th or the 19th, like I said, I could do it the following week.
Yeah, it's up to you, however you'd like to work it.
I mean, it doesn't matter to me, but
I
just wanted to make sure you all are comfortable.
If you don't mind doing a spoiler section, I think that would be cool. That way, people that haven't seen the movie can watch the first half, pause it, watch the movie, and then come back for kind of this in-depth discussion.
Yeah, that's cool. That's fine by me. So we've talked about some of the acting, but I did. Well, actually, before we get into the spoiler part, I did notice that one of the actors in the film, I looked him up, was also Shredder in Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles: Secret of the Ooze, which immediately called my attention because I was a huge Ninja Turtles fan of all their stuff. I'm not wearing this shirt today, but I did wear it the other day. But the 90s films were some of my favorites from back then of the Ninja Turtles, and I thought it was really cool that you got him in the movie. So how did that come to be?
So I was a big fan of Francois Chow. I'm a huge fan of Lost. It's my favorite sci-fi series. Right. And when I was writing the script, you know, you always have actors in mind that you kind of write towards to just help bring the characters to life in your mind. And Francois was always the role of the director in my mind. And when it got time to cast, I was, you know, doing some research into Francois, and you know, I was like, we're a low budget production, but it can't hurt to just ask, you know, to reach out to him and see what happens. So I messaged him the day before Thanksgiving in 2017 saying I was a big fan, you know, and basically pitched him on the project. And he got back to me on Thanksgiving saying that he'd love to read the script. So I sent it immediately over to him. Over the next week, he read it, and we started talking about it. And he said, you know, it was a project that he'd love to be a part of. So it was really just absolutely a dream come true working with him. He was like the Hollywood veteran on the set. Whenever he walked out, everybody was like in awe. And I think we all learned a lot from Francois, just kind of watching his techniques. And it was fascinating in the blocking rehearsals, just kind of watching him kind of, you know, own the space. Like he would feel it out, see what his character would do. It was just a really great learning experience getting to work with him as well.
Right, yeah, it seemed like he just fit right into the role perfectly.
Yes.
Which is pretty crazy because I don't know how many other, like I said, I've only seen, I think I saw some of Lost. I never finished the whole series, but obviously Ninja Turtles was my main go-to as Shredder. So to see him being Shredder and then all of a sudden Shredder is a doctor and it's like a whole different twist, which I will get into next. There's a lot of twists in this film.
Yes.
Because there are a lot of bounces around. Spoilers for those that are listening, because there'll be an audio only and a video. The video will go up on YouTube, and then the audio only will go up on like Spotify and all that. So
cool.
We're still gonna do the spoiler comment. But there's a part towards the beginning when Chloe, oh my goodness, Eve, my goodness, I want to call everybody by your real names now. It's throwing me off. Where Eve sees one of the other characters, I can't remember her name, but she's banging on the door, screaming for help. And obviously, I'm not going to give too much away, but that leads to something into you thinking that Eve might be losing it a little bit. Mm-hmm. But in my mind, automatically, I'm a conspiracy guy. I'm like, she's not losing it. Like, that was real. There's something else at play here. So I knew something was coming. But I did think that was a cool sequence because that kind of introduced the first bit of horror of, hold on, there's something wrong here. This isn't normal anymore.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was a fun scene to shoot. I think we shot that around like the halfway point in the shooting schedule. And Linda, my God, she was screaming bloody murder that night. She was amazing.
She was amazing in that part.
Banging down the door. And actually their tug of war on the doorknob actually pulled it completely out. And we didn't have a doorknob on the house for like a couple nights until somebody could come in and repair it. So you guys really gave it your all in that scene.
Yeah, that was one thing about the acting. Like, you all went all in with it. So it didn't. You said that you were like a smaller production, but it did not feel like a smaller production to me. Like, I was like, I know they're probably independent, but they feel like they're on a big level. And that was with some of the special effects too, like the holograms coming in, which was also part of me thinking it was a weird dream phase. Because I was like, what? That was part of, like, I was just thinking like dream phase. Like, I think it was also because you were wearing your regular like civilian clothes, and then you get drugged, and then when you wake up, you're wearing that specific outfit. So to me, that felt like, I don't know, I'm probably not the only person that's going to see the film and think dream phase. At least I hope I'm not. Because like, really
that was
but it was
that
cool.
Some people had that we heard. That was one of the fun parts about the trailer coming out was people posting reaction videos and saying what their theories were. And your theory is one that a few people have is, you know, they're in like a virtual world or something where, you know, they're being tested in a dream state. So
yeah, almost kind of like a matrixy field almost, like.
Yes.
But it's like they know what they're getting into, but they don't know what they're getting into at the same time. So that's why when the scene happened with, I think you said Linda, with the banging on the door and stuff like that, it felt like it could be real and not be real at the same time. because there was that part where, well, you had taken the drug brownies, as I want to call them, or the hash brownies or whatever they were before that. So obviously that led into it looking like there's a possibility that Eve could have been hallucinating.
Yeah. Yeah, what was that like for you guys? Were the cookies good? I never actually ate the cookies.
Oh, that's a good question. I should have asked that.
Oh, no, I never ate one.
So what was that like for you guys? How were the cookies?
It's real LSD because we're method. Yeah, I wish we actually have the clip of Linda's audition. Like, I have never seen, like, she auditioned for that part, and I was at, like, when I saw the audition video for it, I was actually like, oh my god, is she actually, like, is she in trouble? Like, when she auditioned, she did that whole scene in an audition video, and I was like, just immediately we're like, all right, she's got the part. Like, just like,
right.
you don't even have to meet
and
her.
she's
like,
the sweetest person in the world.
Oh my gosh, yeah, she's
really
just
does.
so talented.
And fun fact too, so there's a song in the movie called "I'm Obsessed with You" that plays when Tom and Eve arrive at the house and they're exploring, and it's a fun little montage. And Linda is one of the singers of the song. Her band,
oh really?
The Orion Experience, did that song.
That's actually pretty cool. I would have never known that. Like, I was like, I never heard this song before, but I wouldn't have expected that one of the actors in the film was actually singing on the song too. So that's actually pretty cool. That is pretty cool. So we want to talk about a little bit more of the film. I just lost my train of thought. Give me a second. I do that a lot because I sometimes write stuff down and then I don't write stuff down at other times and I just lose it and it's just gone. What would you say would be the most fun part, or maybe you'll do the most fun part and then after that maybe do the most difficult part of your filming process?
All of it.
Oh, wait, is that fun and difficult, or is that all of it was difficult?
All of
Jim,
it.
what was yours?
The most fun part was all the really messed up stuff.
Yeah.
Like, you don't get to do that every day. That's cool. There's, you mentioned the bathroom door. There's
Right.
a whole scene. And that was our last day of filming too. Was one of the most fun sequences that I've ever gotten to work on. To smash my hand through glass.
That was pretty crazy. That, like, it looked legit. Of course, it reminded me a little bit, not completely, but a little bit of The Shining when Jack Nicholson smashes through the door with the axe. Only it wasn't an axe; it was way more violent because it was your entire arm.
Yep.
So it was way worse.
Yeah, all those, anything with fight sequences, anything with fun. I mean, you mentioned that scene where Linda arrives and Chloe comes running down the hall. That is still my favorite shot from the movie. I wasn't even in it, but I just watched everyone work on it. When it pulls out as she's the pulling effect that the camera does as Chloe runs down the hallway is still my favorite shot in the whole movie. It has the most surreal effect, and it's the first time you realize that it's actually a horror movie is when that moment happens. And I think that shot just sets it up so nicely. It was all those fun little weird things that we got to do. I've done so many projects, but this one I got to like be crazy.
And that's crazy. That was what I was tying into earlier, where it's like 1 second you're one person and the next second your personality is just completely different.
Yeah.
So it kind of keeps you on the edge of your seat because 1 second you're on Eve's side where you're like, Tom is crazy, and the next second you're on Tom's side where you think Eve is crazy. You're like, what the heck is going on here? Either everybody's losing it or somebody's not in the right frame of mind. And then you just kind of pinpoint the little different things that kind of lead towards the ending, which I don't want to spoil, so we're not going to get to the ending.
Everybody dies.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, comes pretty close. But going back to the Linda scene, the other cool part was when she was knocking the door and it was like you couldn't get the door open. Like Eve was trying to open the door and the door wouldn't open. That was another part that made me feel like a dream sequence because I feel like, why could you not open this door? What was it about the door? Then obviously the science or the government or whoever the heck the scientists were, they were probably somehow controlling that. But that scene of her husband walking up behind her was one of the creepiest scenes in the film for sure.
Yeah,
like just that shot.
In that, he just has this death stare.
I mean, it was perfect. It was like a Kane Hodder or like Friday the 13th kind of just, and you don't because you don't see them that much in the film, and you don't really see any of the other couples. So it's really just Eve and Tom, and then that one scene, or the scene in the beginning where she's yelling at him about forgetting her pillow at the house and saying, if you were a good husband, you would go and get my pillow. See, I remember things.
You do.
But I thought that was clever, but it didn't put anything together to me that I would see her again after that initial sequence. So it was cool to see that scene come back into fruition like that.
No, I'm so glad you picked up on that. That's cool. We wanted to, there's so many things in the film that we wanted to sow the seeds early on so that when, you know, certain twists and turns happen, you're like, oh my gosh, I remember this. And
right.
We really wanted it to be structured so when you rewatch the film, you'll notice things, you know, each and every time differently.
And it helped because the characters of Tom and Eve in the beginning were like the perfect couple. Mm-hmm. So then you saw like the other couple kind of arguing. So it made me wonder when I was watching it, I was like, why did they even feel the need to do this? Because they're already basically in the honeymoon phase. And then I start thinking, well, they don't want to end the honeymoon phase. So that's kind of their reason for doing the whole thing. Whereas the other people have already out of the honeymoon phase and they just want to get back. So it was kind of a really cool concept.
Well, thank you.
Now I'm going to break into another spoiler here. Like I said, I'm not going to give away the ending, but I do want to talk about oh my goodness. I want to do this, but I don't know if you don't want me to talk about it, let me know. I'll cut it out of the episode. But I want to talk about the cloning aspect because that was something I never saw coming. So I really want to talk about it.
We can totally talk about it. Just put a spoiler alert and then let's dive in.
Yeah, like I said spoilers earlier before we even started talking about any of the actual movies. So
awesome. Cool.
Yeah, so that
what do you want to know about the cloning?
How did you come up with that concept? Like, what made you decide, okay, I want this to be something different. I don't just want this to be a creepy experiment, but I want it to be like they're being played the entire time and being morphed into the clones without even realizing it.
So a lot of my favorite horror films are ones that have twists that you don't see coming, but then afterwards you think about it and you're like, oh my gosh, this makes perfect sense. This is the only way the movie could have ended. And when we were conceiving the idea of the honeymoon phase, we were talking about what a cool twist would be and how can it be story related. And this concept of not knowing who your partner is was kind of the genesis for that. Where we were like, okay, so we know the theme that we want to talk about, which is not knowing your lover. So what is like a physical manifestation of that in an experiment environment? And cloning was one of the ideas that we had. We were like, maybe he's a robot. That was one. But clone was the one that we really stuck on because we just thought it'd be so eerie to be in bed with somebody and not realize that they're actually somebody else. You know, they're a doppelganger.
Right. And because they are still that person because they're a clone. So they're still, and they're retaining the memories and stuff like that. But obviously, as we see in the film, the clones are like way more violent. So there's those things that make them off.
Yes.
And I just chalked that up to their experimentation with the cloning wasn't perfect, obviously, because they never had success with it. So that's kind of making the more violent attitude of the clones. And that's what ties into what I was saying with Jim being exciting, how he could be the sweetheart for 1 second and then this violent clone the next second. I'll be honest, when I was watching it before the cloning aspect came up of it, I originally thought, because I was still in the mind of it being like a dream state kind of thing, I thought the doctor, Francois's character, was somehow possessing Tom's body, and that's why it wasn't really Tom.
That's actually creepier.
Yeah, that in my mind. So obviously I was like really creeped out thinking that somehow the doctor was pretending to be Tom. And that's why it went into the other scene where Tom was talking to the other doctor who had just pretended to be friends with Eve. So in my mind, it was like, oh, he's really the doctor. And that's why they're talking behind her back. So obviously, I don't know if anybody else has given that theory yet, but that was definitely going through my head when watching the film.
I have not heard that one yet, but I like that. I think that's a cool theory.
Because it's like not only can you not, is your partner not who you think they are, but nobody is who you think they are. And that's
I like that. Maybe the sequel.
The sequel. Yeah, everybody's a clone in the sequel, but they're all just possessed by one of the other characters. Maybe in the sequel, Chloe can be inside the clone of Tom. And
Yeah.
I think one of the things that you said with the clones being violent, that was something that me and Jim discussed a lot about, was the psyche of Tom. And Jim, maybe you can elaborate on this. You know, we didn't view Tom as like a bad guy when we were discussing him. We really view him as a child. You know, he's only a month old in terms of the cloning process.
Yeah.
And Jim, I don't know if you want to elaborate on that.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of our discussion about Tom versus what I like to call not Tom was that not Tom is just trying to survive.
Right.
And I think the reason the violence comes out is because he doesn't have the physical or the mental ability to understand how to handle things. So a lot of his violence is childish in that way. It's more lashing out than it is an intentional act in harm. Every time he does something violent, it's just to try and control his situation, not trying to actually hurt anyone. Just exactly the same way, like Phil said, that, you know, a child would. I have a 1-year-old, and that's exactly what he does.
Right. It's like
Those
he
things,
doesn't have
and
that control over his emotions, basically. So they just come out in any which form of way.
They just react, and to put a child in an adult's, like a full-grown adult's body is a terrifying thing to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
And especially also in a situation where the clone, not Tom, is in just as much danger as Eve is.
Right.
Like we had a lot of talk about, if this doesn't work, then no one is surviving.
Right.
So there's that consistent pressure, I think, that exists on not Tom as well. And I would probably react violently too.
Yeah. And I mean, that did turn into like the creepiness of it as well, because 1 second not Tom, as you refer to him, is the one in danger, because Eve has realized she's like, you're not my husband. So then it twists back and forth where one's in danger and then the other character is in danger. So it's kind of cool on how that horror mixes in for both characters.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, the cloning facility, which, I mean, we're already into the spoilers, so we might as well just go off. The part where Chloe has to figure out which clone is Tom. I had a notion in here. I knew it from the second that she chose. I don't know how. Well, I think I knew how, was because the real Tom in my mind was the one that said, I don't want you to hurt yourself. He did not mention anything about the baby. And in my mind, I was like, well, the real Tom wouldn't know about the baby because that happened with the clone Tom in the household. So that, in my mind, kind of gave it away. And then obviously when the not Tom goes, do it, kill it. I'm like, well, there's the violence on the clone right there. So that to me kind of gave it away too. But yeah, I thought there was a little bit of a hidden thing for those who were paying close enough attention in the movie of the, I don't want you to hurt yourself, because he doesn't even know about the baby. So I don't know if you snuck that in there or if that was just something I picked up in the film and it has nothing to do with the film at all.
No, there were definitely hints in what was happening in that scene to the fact that she chose the wrong Tom. Because, like you said, real Tom wouldn't want her to hurt herself. And I think Tom is smart enough at that point where he knows how to emotionally manipulate Eve. So he as much as it kills him to watch him lose his child, which is even weirder because in essence, as you just said, he basically is a child. He wants the youngest father ever. So yeah, we tried putting those hints in there to, you know, the fact that she chose the wrong one. And it's so tragic too, because it's, you know, you're rooting for them to get back together. And when she does, you know, full spoilers, when she chooses the wrong one. I'm actually curious, do you think that the Tom that she chose was the clone Tom in the house or another random clone of Tom? Because we've gotten some theories on that too.
Now, in my mind, I would have thought the clone from the house because of the blood.
Yeah.
But when the real Tom says they stabbed me, so it really could be they both could have been clones for all I know. There's a theory for you. Neither of them was the real Tom, and the real Tom was like dead somewhere.
Some people think that to watch the film. That's what we when we set out to write it, we really wanted it to have, you know, different interpretations on things. Because that's the fun part when you see a movie is afterwards discussing, like, what do you think this meant, or do you think that person's that person? And but yeah, that's been really just a really fun part of this process, is just listening to what people think and the theories they have.
I wonder how many people caught that the doctor, when Eve shoots, like whenever she shoots through the room, the doctor's eyes open.
Yeah.
So he wasn't done, and I was like, okay, there's definitely some kind of sequel in the works here because he's not done yet.
So we shot a whole alternate ending for the film that involves Tom, and I don't want to reveal it yet because it's actually we included on all the special features on the digital release of the film.
Yeah, that makes sense. You don't want to spoil that.
Yeah, but when you see it, it explains a little bit about who Tom is talking to in the White Room, and is a little bit more conclusive about some of the things that happen. We ultimately decided to cut it because we wanted to end the story on Tom and Eve. You know, when their relationship's over, the movie's over in my eyes.
Right, and it makes sense because it was centered around them for the whole movie, so it makes sense to end with that as well.
Yeah.
What also could have been creepy would have been if they were both clones in the end. Now my mind is just going all over the place. But if Chloe ended up somehow being if Chloe ended up being the clone and Tom ended up being real, that would have been a crazy twist as well.
Yeah, we actually thought about that as a thing.
We had a draft where there was during the escape, Eve goes to the matching house with real Tom and clone Eve. And there was a whole fight scene there and everything. And it was really cool, but it just got a little convoluted. We wanted to kind of focus in on real Eve, clone Tom versus real Tom. Or how did you put it, Jim? What do you call him?
Not Tom.
Not Tom.
Not Tom
like
and not Eve. Not Eve and not Tom.
Not Tom.
Not Tom.
Well, when I first heard the name Eve, I almost expected the husband to be Adam. I don't know, just because it would have made sense. And then you get into cloning and everything, so I could have tied into it as well. How did you come up with the names for the characters?
Do you remember Tom and Eve?
No, I know you just wanted one syllable.
Yeah, I wanted one syllable names.
Oh, yeah, because they're both 3 letters, too.
Yeah.
Tom and Eve is both 3-letter names.
Yeah, and you know, I wish there was like a super deep story for it, but I think we were just spitballing names, and they were Tom and Eve, and they've always been Tom and Eve now.
Eve is a cool name because you don't hear of a lot of people named Eve, so it kind of fits in. And then whenever I think Tom from MySpace back in the day. So.
Tom from MySpace.
There you go. There's a new sequel. Tom becomes the new MySpace Tom, and he's like a weird clone. My head is full.
He was cloned across all the different profiles. So
yeah, there was like 50,000 Toms.
Most liked guy. Everybody likes Tom.
Yep, everybody loves Tom. Tom is everybody's friend.
Yes.
Not Tom wants to be everybody's friend, but then when everybody realizes he's not Tom, they don't want to be his friend anymore, and he turns violent because of it.
Or not Tom.
He just wants to be loved, man.
He does. I think it's so, you know, obviously it's a psychological horror film, and there has to be an antagonist, but in everything with the movie, we really did want to play up kind of the tragic nature of the not Tom character. You know, he's just in a really shitty situation, and because he has these childlike urges, he doesn't know how to handle himself. And it's a shame because, you know, if not Tom had a normal life, you know, he might have turned out okay.
And that's the crazy thing is, despite the violent urges, you could see him getting smarter and smarter over time and adjusting so that by the end of the film, he's able to do other things. Now, I'm not going to spoil the very end. Like I said, I'm going to keep that out. I would love to talk about it, but I'm not going to. Maybe after the film, I'll have you come back on and we'll talk about it in greater detail about that. But yeah, that was something cool, is you could see him adjusting to each different scenario and becoming more like Tom. Even though he's not Tom, he's becoming more like him as the film progresses as well, but still maintaining that urges. But it's just cool because you can see him getting smarter. Like he's figuring out, like you said, different ways of manipulating Eve into thinking that he's really Tom, hence the not being able to choose between the two in the one part and situations like that.
Yeah.
Now, when she did the first shot originally in that scene, I thought she shot herself. And I originally, when I first saw that shot of her doing the gunshot and then Tom reaching for, I thought that the baby inside her was Tom somehow. This is another weird twist. Like, clone Tom was like the baby, which is why he wanted to have the baby, because he wanted to be reborn somehow. I've seen a lot of really creepy horror movies. Let's put it
That's some meta stuff right there.
That is
Yeah,
what I
so
love
it's like
about
she
cartoons.
shoots it and it kills that Tom because now you've killed off another variation of like the Tom being reborn.
That is awesome. Are you a writer by chance?
I used to be. I haven't done anything fully, but like I said, with the YouTube and the skits and the different things, my mind goes all over the place. I did write part of a short story for my other podcast, Ultimate Metalverse, which is for heavy metal. I've only done one episode, but I fully like voice acted and wrote like a short fantasy style story with some metal music in the background for that.
Nice.
I can link y'all later.
Send me that.
Yeah, I'll
send me
it to
that
you.
link. Yeah.
That was my first time ever doing that, anything like that. And originally I wanted to bring in other people, but I don't have, like, my real friend, Twisted Joker, lives in Indiana now, so he doesn't live in Pennsylvania anymore. So it's kind of hard to get people to do, like, the different voices and stuff like that. So I just found some kind of voice changer to the best of my ability. With the one kind like demon imp kind of creature, it kind of messes with it a little bit. Some parts are a little bit harder to understand. But I'm not a like music professional. I don't know how to blend that stuff in. So basically I found the artist on one of the free like copyright music things in it and was like, hey, can I use your music for this new podcast I'm doing? I want to add it into the background for the story I'm doing. And he gave me permission. So that was really cool.
That's
I
awesome.
still can't, to this day, can't pronounce the name of the artist. Because it was like XT Rake UR XX. It was like really bizarre. But and it was just instrumental, so it fit perfectly with what I was trying to do. So yeah, it was a cool concept. My original plan was to do a different part of this story with each episode, and then because I'm trying to do so many different podcasts, like now I have the Patreon, so I'm trying to do exclusive Patreon podcasts. It's just hard to keep track of everything. Like I have Popcorn Farts, which is one with my wife, which is literally called Popcorn Farts for a reason. It's a play on pop culture and also like going to the movies.
Okay.
And like eating the popcorn, and then some of the movies that we review or talk about are the worst movies, hence the farts. So like the rating would be like a popcorn fart or something like that. We've done like one episode of that. And then in terms of all the skits, or actually I think on episode 2.5 maybe of this podcast, I created a whole bunch of like horror themed characters for the episode. One of those characters named Jestro, all of them have masks. So at some point on the YouTube channel, people have seen them all in different variations. But I plan on doing a talk show style podcast for the Patreon called The Jestro Show, where I'm as that character.
That's cool.
Which should be a lot of fun because Jestro is really creepy. So it should be very interesting. He's like the maniacal prankster. I think the first video I did of him, I made my wife film with my old phone. I have an iPhone now. It wasn't an iPhone then. It was like an old, like kind of crappy film. And I did like the tape around 2 of the drawers into like into the kitchen. So I had it like Jestro was filming, playing a prank on me. And then I walk in and like hit my head or something like that. And then he does a really creepy laugh and the lights cut on because the lights are off and it's like pitch black. And then it's just like, like really loud. That's my Jestro laugh. My voice changes with every character I do. So you can tell your boy loves horror. So obviously, like I said, with your film, with me loving horror and all the different concepts with the cloning and the seeming like a hallucination, but knowing it's not a hallucination. And that was another character. I can't remember her whole name, but Tara, the one that plays as the female doctor in the hologram, I think she did a really good job as well. But the one thing I picked up on in the film was the first part where it says, "Don't trust Tom," and that creepy whisper. When I heard it, it sounded like Tom saying it. Now, later on, I figured out it was probably the doctor, but I would have been, how creepy would that have been if not Tom was actually saying, "Don't trust Tom" the entire time?
Guy's got issues.
That would have been better.
Like it sounded like his
words. Like, don't trust me.
The real Tom was saying, "Don't trust Tom."
But yeah, somehow getting in through it saying, "Don't trust Tom." Especially if in my mind it's still the dream sequence at this point because I haven't realized all the other stuff yet.
Yeah.
Like it literally wasn't until she broke out of the house and saw the people with the guns that I realized, okay, this isn't a dream state. This is like a real house the whole time. So it took me almost the whole film. But that was even cooler to me because it kind of broke my mind was thinking one thing and then it spun off into something completely different. Good. So I do like that aspect of it, of even me that's constantly thinking when I'm watching stuff couldn't pick up on that. So that was something I think you did really well in the film.
Oh, that's awesome. Thank you. Yeah, we wanted to keep people guessing throughout. I think the best best horror movies are kind of like a roller coaster ride, but like you don't know where the track's going. And with the honeymoon phase, that was really important to us, is those twists and turns, you know, not knowing, is Eve crazy, is Tom crazy, and even like you said, what the nature of the experiment actually is.
Right, and because in reality, they're both a little bit crazy in this aspect of not only with you filming, but they are trapped in this house and they can't leave.
Yeah.
So really, you could have even played it off as it never being a clone Tom, and it really just being Tom losing his mind, being stuck in the house. Like,
yeah, just cabin fever.
Like, which would have been kind of similar to the Shining issue as well, where he's stuck in that over a long period of time and then he starts to lose it. But the thing about it being trapped in the house was, I don't know when you filmed this, but it kind of leads into the current situation with people being quarantined and not being able to leave their homes and stuff like that. So people are kind of understanding what it's like to go a little bit stir crazy in the house. So they may take that approach as well, where they think it's Tom the whole time.
Yeah, no, it's been really fascinating to see that, you know, the fact that we all are kind of in self-isolation right now because of everything going on in the world, that the film has kind of taken on a new meaning. Like when we wrote the film, we had no idea that there would be a pandemic.
Hold that thought 1 second. My headphones are dying.
Okay.
Okay, you're good.
When we wrote the film, we had no idea that we were going to be in this terrible pandemic. And now that the film is being released in the middle of all of this, it's almost like the people online that are commenting on the film are almost talking about how it is a isolation film. And it's been just really interesting to see that kind of come about. And like you were saying, so many of us are in lockdown with our partners, and hopefully not, you know, living the life that Tom and Eve lived in.
Right. I know that has happened with some people.
Exactly. But it's becoming more and more relatable. And unfortunately, you know, we didn't necessarily talk about kind of the real life themes in the movie, but the film is very much an allegory for, you know, modern day domestic abuse and things like that. And because of the lockdowns and everything, there's so much more of that going on, and it's terrible.
It's really, it's horrible.
It's really horrible. And the film, you know, we tried to do an exploration of that with, you know, Tom, or not Tom, being a...
Now you just confused me. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah. Clone Tom. Kind of that mentality that he has is, you know, I think a lot of men who are controlling have this kind of childish attitude where they're like, I love this person, why don't they love me back? You know, the whole concept of the friend zone and that thing, you know, it's explored in the film where, you know, Tom is at his core just, you know, not understanding why Eve doesn't love him the way that he loves her.
Right. And then there is the really creepy scene in the film where she discovers his book that he was never actually writing, and it was just all these names. That was a cool little scene as well.
Yeah, that was... Jim, maybe you could talk about how you came up with all the names, because Jim was the one that wrote...
That was a lot of names. Yeah, there was a lot of names in that book.
No, let Jim say it. Tell us some of the names that were in there, Jim.
Oh, like... Carl, Abernathy, Squirtle, Bob,
you threw Pokemon in there.
Charizard. Yeah.
I love that.
Now
I wish I would have freeze framed it and like looked at all these names to actually
You'll catch it. It's in there.
I love it.
You'll 100% see it.
I'll see a name and I'll be like, I'm going to hit up Jim and I'll be like, can I use this name in one of my stories on a future episode? I like this.
Yeah, it was so much fun just looking at the names that Jim wrote in there, because, you know, when you're writing names, you can probably write a couple dozen by memory, but then it becomes a challenge at a certain point when you have to write pages of names, you know?
Yep.
That's some of the hardest. Country. And that is some of the hardest things with even writing, is coming up with the names for each character, because you can have what the character is going to be before you even have the name, and then you got to try and come up with a name. And I noticed, like, when I was a teenager, I used to write a lot of short stories and stuff. And I noticed that on that episode of METALVERSE, when I did that one, 2 of the names were the same exact names that I used when I was a teenager in these other short stories that I was writing. And I was just like, I always go back to those names. Even when I'm playing video games, creating characters, my wife will tease me all the time. Because she's like, why do you always pick that name? And I'm like, I don't know. It's just something I came up with when I was a teenager, and I like the sound of the name.
Yeah.
It sounds like medieval. Like, I think one is Arthenon and the other one is Arthenian. So in the original short story, it was like medieval times, and they were brothers, and one turns evil and one stays good.
Okay.
I'm surprised I can remember that, because that was a while ago when I was a teenager.
I don't think those names made it into Jim's baby name book, did they, Jim?
Honestly, I'd have to go back and look.
Put him in this.
When
They
your
can
wife
make him.
got-
They can make him into the sequel baby name book.
Yes, yes.
When your wife got pregnant, did you go back to the book? Like, oh, let's have a look.
Oh yeah, that was it. we found the name James Hunter in that book.
Nice.
That'd be
All right,
good
well-
to tell your kid one day.
I know you guys are strapped for time, and it is already 5 o'clock, so time has like flown by on this episode. So I want to give you a chance to talk about anything else you want to talk about before you leave, as well as mention to people where they can find your film in case they haven't seen it by the time this episode releases.
Sure. Before we do the pitch for the film, I guess, did Jim or Chloe, you guys have anything you want to add with your characters or memories?
No.
So I've talked a lot, Chloe.
I
You.
It's your turn.
could talk for hours about the film.
Yeah.
It's like,
Well, that's expected because you were the one that wrote it and the director, so it kind of ties into it. I tried to incorporate all of you in there. Some
It's
sort of
literally
fashion, give
been
everybody a
like-
chance.
it's literally been my life since like mid 2016. Like, it's crazy. Like, you think that the film stops when you end shooting, but then there's the whole post-production process and, you know,
Right.
finding a distributor, the film festivals. And honestly, this is like, it's been such a cool part of that process now, where we get to talk to people like you who are film enthusiasts, and you come up with
Right.
the theories and just, you know, you're the reason we make the movies, you know, for people
Right.
like you. So it's just been such an honor to meet, you know, you, Tony, and, you know, everybody watching the video. You know, I hope that you check out the film, and I hope it impacts you, you know, the way that, you know, we wrote it to be, which is, you know, you look at your partner and you wonder, are they really the person that I think they are? You know, if you are in a relationship with somebody, definitely watch the film with them.
Right.
We wrote it as a couple's, you know, horror film.
And there's
Unless you're my wife and then she doesn't want to watch it with me.
Yeah.
Then it should be like, wait a minute, are you not Jim now? It's not Tom, you're not Jim.
Oh, she said Phil and Chloe came over and we watched the final cut, and they left, and she said, "So you're gonna sleep downstairs tonight, right?"
That's funny.
But the
That's
film will be available on digital home video and limited theatrical release on August 21st. The iTunes, Apple TV version of the movie has all the exclusive digital behind the scenes. So there's a
Nice.
of deleted scenes, alternate opening and ending, a whole conversation with Chloe and Jim about the relationship with their characters and kind of their process and everything. So if you're going to pick up a version, that would be the one that I recommend if you want to see all the behind the scenes. But it'll be on Amazon Video Prime, Google Play, PlayStation, all the major outlets.
I'll definitely be on the lookout for that, because after all the theories I've already said that were like just out there, I really want to see the alternate ending.
There's a lot of deep dive stuff on there, because as a film lover myself, I love the behind the scenes stuff. So we really put a lot of love into those. But yeah, and then if you do check out the film, please hit us up on Twitter. Let us know what you think. We're a grassroots production, so like literally from the beginning when we did our original pitch video, it's all been about you know, our audience and reaching out to them and building that audience. So if you like the film, please let people know about it. We are a small indie production, so you know, our goal right now is for the film to break even, so we can hopefully do this again.
Right.
And there's so many.
Yes, let's make it break even, because I want to see another one.
Yes. There are so many.
Even if it's not the same thing, I still want to see another film from you.
And one of the things that was really cool that I don't think we touched upon was this was a first feature film for all three of us, right, Jim? This was your first leading role.
Yeah.
You have
That's really cool.
repertoire of theater work, but first feature, Chloe first feature, my first feature, and a lot of the cast and crew, it was their first feature. So, you know, it would mean the world to all of us. You know, if you like the film, please let other people know about it.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I think it's going to be successful for the people that watch it. Like I said, I've seen it and I was in love with it. So I think many other people that are fans of horror or even, I guess you could even say thriller, because it's like a thriller in a lot of it, like that suspense section of it. I think people will be fans of it.
Yeah, we hope so. We pitched it as like a feature-length version of a Black Mirror episode. So
Right.
into that kind of thing, you know, Black Mirror. And Dark Sky Films, who's our distributor on the project, they have an amazing library of genre films, some great sci-fi movies and horror. So we're hoping that the fans of their work too check out our movie, because I think you'll walk away hopefully surprised at that ending that you keep alluding to.
Yeah, I mean, I've given a lot about the film, but I refuse to give the ending. I mean, I built practically right up to almost the ending and then stopped short just shy of the ending.
And for anybody that's listened to this first without seeing the film,
Go see the film.
I think that it'll be really fun for you, you know, knowing some of these spoilers, you will see some of those seeds that are in there, because there's, you know, pretty much from the opening onwards, you know, there's things that reveal what happens at the end. So
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Hopefully some of, even though it was spoilers, obviously, hopefully some of that with the little things that I picked up, people watching, if they haven't seen it yet, whenever they watch, they can pick up on some of the same things or see some of those same little things that I picked up on.
yeah, absolutely.
Maybe they'll freeze frame that book of names and write down all the mysterious names written down in that book.
It's also, after you've watched such a dark film, the ending is so uplifting and happy that like you'll walk away feeling better. So it like rounds it all up, and then you don't feel awful at the end, which is good.
Yeah, it's all rainbows. It's rainbows and unicorns.
Literally, similar to that. That's what I would hashtag it.
No, with that, actually, so not giving away the ending, but when the credits roll, we have music playing. And
Right.
originally, our amazing composer, Chris Ryan, he wrote this really tragic, like, piano medley of the main theme for the film over the credits. And we absolutely loved it. We showed it to a test audience. And there was just kind of dead silence after the film ends during the credits, which
Right.
initially what we wanted, like we wanted people to ponder what they watched, but people didn't know when it was okay to like return to the real world then, where they're like,
That's funny.
start talking, you know, what do I do? So we found this perfect song that's at the end of the film called You Know I Love You. And it's like this 50s like doo-wop song that we put at the credits, because I think it's like the perfect ending to the film. It's this ironic song about love, and you know, snaps you back to reality, I think, at the end after you watch this really just hellish experience of this couple.
You could have also made it really creepy by just putting no song at the end and just having the credits roll in complete silence. So that everybody is forced to think about everything they just watched.
Oh, that would drive me crazy.
Or just have the voice saying, "Don't trust them," like consistently throughout the credits. Don't trust your spouse. It sounds like some creepy brainwashing.
God. But yeah, no, thank you so much for having us on, Tony. This has been such a pleasure getting to talk about the film, and you're so enthusiastic about the movie. It really, you know, made our day to hear your theories and to know that you enjoyed the movie.
There were a lot.
Yeah.
But I had a blast. And it, like I didn't say, I'll cut this part out probably, but that entire thing with everything was basically just winged. I didn't write anything down for this, so I was going off a memory of what I just watched. But yeah, the theories were all somehow still recollected a day after watching the film.
It's so funny. I'm glad it made you think. That's good. That's good.
Yeah, I liked it. I liked it a lot. So I'm looking forward to having you on again after the film releases, where we can discuss the ending and only the ending for an entire episode of the film. Can you imagine?
There's
like,
so
this
much
is the
to that ending.
This is the episode where we discuss the ending of the honeymoon phase.
You know, I with the ending, just because I need to give Jim and Chloe all the credit in the world for that ending, because you guys just have such a tragic performance, you know, in there. And half the time, like Jim, when he's choking Eve, half the time he's like choking the camera body, you know, like on the one shot where
Right.
looking in the lens, Eve was in makeup, or Chloe was in makeup, you know, not even on set, and Jim's having to conjure, you know, Eve's performance basically. So you guys, I don't know how you did it, but
I actually, while I was in makeup, I was watching that scene happen with Jim just choking a pillow. And
That's hilarious.
I just slowed down and I was like, this movie's so fucked up. Like, what are we doing? You know, like, that's a lot of emotion for him to choke into that pillow.
and because of the,
He was feeling that. He was feeling it. He's like, this pillow is real.
because of our schedule too, we had to shoot a lot of the ending of the film the first week. So that was day 3. Day 2 was the first half of that scene, and day 3, first thing in the morning, Jim's stroking a pillow. And
Funny. I'm gonna save this and randomly add it into the next whenever you guys come back on. But it's still recording, so I'm gonna cut it out of the episode, but then just add it in the next time. Like, this is what happened after we stopped recording, even though we were still recording. Jim is choking the pillow and being like, "This is for everybody that turned me down when I was trying to get into film." Channel that interaction.
I wanted my own room.
I'm sick of walking by people when they're trying to sleep and having no boundaries. All right. I'll go ahead and end it here. Nobody's going to know why there's random laughter in this segment of the video. Like I said, because I have to cut out the other part. But I want to thank you so much for joining. I know you have other stuff to do. So, yeah, hopefully we'll get you on again very soon after the film releases. Everybody who has not seen the film at the point of watching this episode, go watch it. What the heck are you waiting for? You should have seen the film before you even listened to this episode, because I'm putting in the description that there's spoilers. So if you're listening to this and not watching the film, I ought to slap you, because I'm Tonysaurus Rex. T-Rexes get angry very easily. You ought to be slapped for that. But yeah, go watch the film and hit everybody up on Twitter. Did you drop all of your Twitter handles yet? I think you mentioned Twitter, but you didn't give your actual handles.
So we're at Who You Married To. Chloe, what's your Twitter?
It's Chloe CHLO _Carrol. I just started actually going on Twitter. It's the my least favorite social media.
Oh, don't say that at the end.
Twitter and Instagram are the only ones I really go on.
In my opinion.
I mean, yeah, I go on Twitter for promotion for stuff, but I'm not on there much otherwise, because there's just so much negativity all the time.
I'm on Facebook and everyone's like, "That's the old people one."
I hate Facebook.
Like, why are you on
Facebook? I'm on Facebook, but I'm not on Facebook. If you get my drift.
And
I have Facebook.
I'm at Carrol Jr. on Twitter.
And Jim, are you on Twitter?
Yeah, at Jim Schubin, spelled SCHUBIN, and that's literally Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. It's very easy.
See, you got it easy. With me, I didn't get that opportunity. Like the Tonysaurus Rex, it's Tonysaurus Rex spelled right on almost everything, except for Twitter. I had to spell it with a K.
Oh.
I was like, how are you going to steal my name, man? I think my Twitch is spelled with a K for some reason, too, because it was taken. But, YouTube is Tonysaurus Rex, Patreon Tonysaurus Rex, Instagram is real Tonysaurus Rex. But it's all spelled normal. And then, 2 random accounts are spelled with KS.
Right.
You're just like, come on, man. But, yeah, that's going to do it for this episode. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Philip. Oh, my God. I'm about to call everybody by the wrong names, by the character names. And then Philip, Chloe, and Jim, thank you so much for joining me. I will be looking forward to having you all again very soon.
Oh, thank you
so much.
All right, we're going to stop it here.